Hannah's prayer was bigger than what she could understand. Now, look, we know from looking at the scripture that God does answer this prayer. God was going to give Hannah a son, but the time wasn't right yet. God needed a strong leader in a dark time in Israel. And the fact of the matter is, it just wasn't dark enough yet. God had to wait for Israel to get farther away from him. He had to wait for the situation to get darker and more desperate so that he could have a strong leader come forward and shine God's light at that time. You see, this setting of 1 Samuel, this transition time, we read phrases like this: the word of the Lord was rare during this time. God wasn't speaking much because people weren't listening. We also read this phrase: because there were no leaders, godly leaders on the scene, it said that everybody did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. Whatever seemed like, seems like a good thing for me to do. So everybody was just doing their own thing. It was in that setting that Samuel was born. And yet it still wasn't dark enough yet. Because shortly after this, the Philistines, the enemies of the Israelites, attack. And in one day, Eli the high priest, 2 of his sons were all killed on that same day. The Israelite army was defeated. And if that wasn't bad enough, the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord was captured by the Philistines and taken away. So Eli, the high priest, has died, and all of these bad things have happened, plunging Israel into an incredibly dark time. Eli's daughter-in-law is pregnant, and the shock of hearing that her husband and her brother-in-law and her father-in-law have died and that the Israelite army has been defeated and the Ark of the Covenant has been captured is so much that it sends her into labor, and she ends up dying shortly after delivery. With her dying breath, she says, "Name my son Ichabod." That name means that God's glory has departed from Israel. That's when Samuel needed to be on the scene. It needed to be that dark. God was going to answer Hannah's prayer, but he was silent as she prayed year after year after year, waiting for things to get darker and darker and darker so that God could shine a bright light through Samuel and bring about an incredible revival.